It's the fat chip.
I saw something recently, a short clip about actors who struggled mentally after playing certain roles. Some of them said they couldn't shake off the character's habits and mannerisms. Some continue to talk and behave like the character even after the role had long ended, as if they don't remember what they used to be like. Some suffered because they were receiving real hatred from people for a character they played. Why don't we talk about how weird that is? Not about the side effects, but about acting itself. Like, how is this not one of the strangest professions we've created as humans? The more I think about acting, the more it feels like being possessed. And we've completely normalized it without questioning. Like, how do you step into a character that isn't yours, fully commit to it, cry as them, love as them, hate as them, and then go home and be yourself? What does that even look like? Is the I a self that can easily be shared or put in the back burner for a while? Is there such a clear line between the person and the character? And this is the part I can't wrap my head around. How do you become someone else? Not just copy their habits or mannerisms, but actually feel what they're supposed to feel. If a character is grieving, you have to grieve. If they're in love, you have to fall in love, or at least convince us that you're in love. If they are cruel, you have to access cruelty from where? Inside you. Does that mean there are pieces and parts of you that match the character? And the process of embodying the character is also fascinating. Not only do they change their weight to reflect the character's look, which in itself is already, some gain an extreme amount and some lose a dangerous amount. They change or train their posture, practice certain habits and mannerisms so it comes to them easily. An actor revealed staying away from social gathering and human connection a few weeks before filming started so that he could get into the recluse mindset of the character is going to play. Some of them don't even respond to their real names on sets. They stay in character between takes. Is identity really that flexible? Can you just step into another mindset like that? This is so mind boggling to me. Like when you see some of the best actors, or when you see a bad actor on screen, when people say this person is a terrible actor, it's because I can see you, yourself, your personality on screen. While I'm watching, I'm not supposed to be seeing you. I'm supposed to be seeing the character. So how do you do that? How do you keep yourself somewhere while you perform being someone else, or do yourself transform? And if you practice being someone else long enough, does it start to reshape you? Who exactly is you if you are being reshaped by every person you play? Yourself becomes a culmination of every person you've ever played. Or are we all more fluid than we think? And in that case, what does that mean for the self? If I am not one person but several, if who I think I am can be switched so easily, then is there actually a default or permanent I? But then actors will say, "Oh, I'm just acting. I'm just pretending to be someone I'm not." Okay, I get it. But filming a movie typically takes months. If you shoot two movies in a year, that means you play two different characters in a year. Each of those characters, you spend months in them. So you only get to be yourself for a short period of time. And this is if you film one movie for months. Some movies take a year to film. Sure, we could liken it to any type of job, just like any other job, 8 to 4, Monday to Friday. When you're at work, you are not really you're not really yourself. You are exhibiting a persona. So, what makes us any different from actors? I mean, it's just a job. What makes this different and especially puzzling is if you understand how the brain works. The brain is shaped by repetition, and experience. You are who you are, personality, mannerisms, and all, due to all the experiences you've had, repeated actions, and the connections you've made over time. To make a character a well rounded person, because that's what makes for a good movie, not even the plot, you need to give them a backstory, a culmination of experiences that makes them who they are. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the movie, but the actor playing the character has to understand all these in order to portray the character accurately, to react the way they would, think their thoughts, express or restrain certain emotions, and see the world the way they would. Through all of this, and in the filming of the movie, the character has connections with the cast, and patterns, behaviors are repeated, so they become habits. And now that character has gained a life of its own. That character now has its own experiences, its own habits, its own connection. You can trick your brain into, your brain can trick you into thinking you've had certain experiences, even when you haven't. Like sometimes you remember yourself doing something as a child, but I mean, you think you have the memory of it, but it's because your mom keeps telling it to you. That's why it feels like the memory has formed. It feels like you remember, but you don't. Or you narrate an event thinking you are there. You're narrating it through your eyes, thinking you are there because it's so vivid in your mind. They're only to realize that you were not there. You heard it from someone who described it so vividly that there is now a false memory of you being there and experiencing it through your eyes. Have you guys ever had experiences like that? The brain is such a strange creature. So if something like that can happen, when actors spend months inhabiting a character, thinking their thoughts, expressing their emotions, reacting to the world the way they would, one cannot help but wonder, what does the brain do with that information? Does it clearly separate performance from reality? Speaking from the perspective of an audience who knows nothing about acting, I learned very early on that I can't lie. My brain cannot draw such a clear distinction between what I know to be true and saying something opposite. So, dare I say, the lines begin to blur. I mean, people cry while watching movies. They know the story isn't real. They know someone wrote the script and the actors are simply doing their jobs. They're acting. These are not real people, or the characters aren't real. Yet, when a character experiences something painful, they feel sadness, they feel joy, anger, frustration. And sometimes we even carry those feelings outside of the movie. People fall in love with characters. People hate actors because of the villain they played. Sometimes an actor spends years trying to escape a role because the audience refuses to separate them from the character. All these to show that emotions don't require reality, and the brain doesn't require something to be real for it to respond to it. The brain reacts emotionally to something it knows on a logical level is performative, it's fictional. If it's this way for the audience, how much more so for the actor? Or maybe I'm overanalyzing this as an outsider looking in, and it's not really that, it's not as impactful for the actors because they of all people know that this isn't real. They're the ones doing the acting, so they know, they understand the script isn't real, the story isn't real, the environment isn't real. There are cameras everywhere, sometimes right in their face as they deliver a touching line. Crew members standing around, lights, microphone, directors shouting cuts. Because we see the finished product, so the story feels continuous for us, like a natural timeline. But that's not how it happens for the actors. A scene that takes place at the end of the movie where the character dies or they fall in love. That might happen on the first day of filming for the actors. An emotional breakdown might be filmed at 9 a.m. in the morning. And right after, they go eat lunch and laugh with the crew. Two people who have this intense emotional love scene might barely even know or like each other. And at the end of filming for that day, maybe an action scene, maybe they were playing a tyrant, they go home. They go back to being a parent, a friend. They leave the maybe 1900s setting, drive back home, and maybe even pick up some extra garbage bags on the way. So they're constantly switching from fake emotions to real ones, from character to themselves, from fiction to reality, over and over and over again. And I keep wondering, isn't that even more damaging? Like, how does the brain keep up with that? How do you cry on command in a room full of people with cameras and lights and microphone and strangers and then just switch it off? How do you experience something emotionally intense for a scene and then immediately remind yourself that this isn't real? How do you not lose track of which feelings belong to you and which ones belong to the character? How certain can you be that a part of them doesn't slowly start becoming a part of you? Because maybe the brain cannot draw such a hard line between the two. And sometimes the character doesn't leave. You hear stories of actors who they say that even after finishing a role, they retain habits of the character. Their mood, their temperament changed. Some of them said they started thinking like the character. You hear stories of actors who had to play extremely violent roles, or maybe a deeply disturbed person, or they played someone who lived inside anger and grief for most of the story. And after months of stepping into that mindset every day of being dark and angry and in grief. Even after it ended, some of them said they couldn't immediately step back out. They still lived with that chaotic, dark energy. Some of them say, before playing that role, they were a people person, they were a social person. But after, they hated being around people. They hated people. We should know by now that something fictional still leaves an imprint on people's minds. I mean, that's why propaganda is usually done through movies. So, isn't it right to say that the brain does not completely understand the difference between performed emotion and real emotion? If you practice anger every day, doesn't your brain just learn to hold on to that anger? If you rehearse grief over and over again, especially if you have to imagine that this terrible thing is actually happening to you in order to express that grief, doesn't your body start storing it like a real memory? And maybe that's why some actors say certain roles changed them. Not because the story was real, but because the emotion was, even if they're rehearsed. So, don't you think acting might be doing something much deeper to the mind than we usually acknowledge? I have a lot of thoughts about acting, but a lot of them are jumbled up in my mind. These are the only ones that I can coherently that I can articulate. And there is another part that confuses me just as much. This one is it doesn't really like it doesn't only apply to acting. It's kind of, you see, it's more general. Sometimes you see an actor, a character on screen who represents something powerful. Maybe they are courageous, they stand up for justice, they deliver these lines about integrity, about morality, about all of these things. And wow, they inspire you. You just want to be like that. You just want to do something big, you want to be better. But then you find out later on that the actor isn't that kind of person at all. The betrayal. Worst of it all is if they end up in some sort of scandal or crime that totally goes against everything they stand for, that goes against everything moral. I mean, of course, this is not only in acting. You see people who are evil, but they present this honest persona. But it just boggles my mind that how can you say these things and not be inspired by the things you're saying, and people are inspired by it. Like you're talking about how, I don't know, it's just interesting to see how can you represent morality, speak words of wisdom to be better, but you yourself don't believe in it. When you talk or the character talks, it feels real, the emotion feels real, the conviction feels real, but it isn't. How can you present such conviction in a belief but not hold it to be true? How can you present such upright character without being affected by it? And if every character you play leave its mark on you, why doesn't that? Or if every role you play, you are accessing something inside you to play that character, where does the virtue that you present, where does it come from if you're nothing but a monster? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out other videos in the catalog. You might just find something that speaks to you. Until next time, my name is Mariam Fad.